Okay, I guess we're live. Hey everybody, I'm Dustin Coiner from Talkin Motorbikes and the TrackDaz program here in SoCal, and I'm on again with Ken, who has got a lipped heel thing going on.
Yeah, it's going good. It's
Ken
my
Hill.
it's my $3,000 deductible lip. So yeah,
Nice.
isn't healthcare great? Yeah, $3,000 deductible, but it's doing amazing. And a lot of people ask me about it at Brainerd. So thank you all very much. So appreciate it.
That's awesome. Well, you just came off of, a lot of work for yourself at Brainerd.
Yep.
I know, I think CJ, the tree trimmer dude's keeping you kind of busy over there, yeah?
Yeah. Let's just jump into it. And I mean, we are
Yeah,
right. We're talking
we're
motorbikes,
talking
right? So
motorbikes, so let's fucking talk
can
motorbikes,
you buy these shirts?
Yeah, you can buy them from the
Okay. Great.
trackdays.com merch site, dude.
Okay, I want 10% of that. All right.
Oh, shut
Anyway.
your fucking mouth, dude.
Okay, yeah, actually we had a very interesting weekend. As CJ's developed as a rider, we've been training towards a little bit of a different setup in mainly on the front of the bike. And we took that idea to Brainerd, and even though we know Brainerd's a little bit different, right? We've got a little bit less grip, we've got a lot of stop and go corners. Um, we took that idea, and quite honestly, in FP1, it sucked. He did not have a good bike, and so we had to rethink what we were doing. And yeah,
Can
in
you
FP2,
can you explain that? Like, he didn't have a good bike. He just wasn't confident,
yeah, I mean
or like,
I
was
mean,
there a certain area on the
yeah,
track that
the
he?
front of the bike was too soft, and we were
Oh,
trying. I mean, I'll say whatever, right? So basically what we've trended towards with him is because he's able to use the brakes much better than he has as he's developed as a rider.
yeah.
We've developed him being able to use the full stroke of the fork for braking, and he's been able to control the brake to get the bike to steer how he wants. Pause for whatever situation. So whatever radius corner, whatever grip, whatever he wants, he's been able to control the fork, or he's in a position now where he can control the fork. He doesn't need the bike set up for him where, oh, it's on its nose all the time to help it steer, or it's a choppered out, right? It's actually a very neutral setup, but we've given what I would call it sort of a long and plush fork, where it's a very linear travel. Like the way we describe it is, if I want 10% more fork, I can give it 10% more brake. If I want 40% more fork, I can give it 40% more
Oh,
brake.
wow. Okay.
And so that's a good way for us to take a look at it. And so he's really graduated to that. So we took that. The problem is that we were getting, I'm going to make it up, if I got 30% brake, but I got 60% fork. And the big issue was, as he came off the brake, how the bike tracked, how the fork popped up, how I got trail. And Brainerd is so important for this because of, I mean, we'll talk about Brainerd, turn one, turn two. I mean, and then the short radius, 3, 4, 5, 6, how the fork comes down and pops up so you can, drive off the corner. Incredibly important. So we were too soft the first setup. He didn't have a lot of confidence to use the brake. So what ends up happening is they use the brake, they go to the brake, and then they pause because they're afraid of going down too far. So for the next session, I made a change on spring rate, and I screwed up, in my opinion, where I went too big of a step. So I went a little too big on the step of the fork. I'll move over a little bit so the light's not
Yeah,
coming in. So
you've got like quite the glare on you.
let's try that. How's that? Is that a
That's
little better?
better, dude.
Yeah, sorry. Still here in Washington. So
Hey,
anyway,
man, this is a real show, dude. Like, you're at your house, dude. I'm at,
I'm at my house. Yes,
yeah.
pretty much.
I mean, I've even
There's
got my
no-
dog here, dude. Like geriatric.
There you go.
friendly,
Yeah,
right? So,
there's no fancy recording studio
Yeah.
crap here.
yeah.
So yeah, so I went a little too far on the setup, meaning I went a couple of steps in fork spring where I probably should have gone one, and there was positives and negatives. And I ended up making a geometry change for Q2, better, but not great. And we actually didn't find our feet until warm up on Sunday morning. I mean, we were faster warm up Sunday morning than we were Q. And anyway, we ended up having a very good performance, but it took us a little while to find it. And going back to how that works with Brainerd is, Brainerd is Brainerd's a very difficult track. It seems very simple in some ways,
Yeah,
but when you start to haul ass there, the little things make such a difference. And you know, how you treat 1 and 2 for a lap time is a really big deal. You
yeah,
can roll through there for sure. No worries.
yeah,
But as your pace comes up, even how you, I mean, trust me, even how you roll off the throttle and then come back to it, lap time. I
dude.
mean, two, how you approach
Yeah, I
two,
mean that's a big long straightaway, dude. Like, right? Like
it's
you're just trying to,
and the
you know,
faster the bike, the harder it is.
yeah.
Yeah.
And Richard's like, lap time's not made up there. That's only 17 seconds of the lap.
Well,
I'm gonna talk to him tomorrow, but yeah, I spoke to him on the phone quite a
so
bit.
I mean, he's right. It is 17 seconds a lap, but the problem is that mentally you lose 2 bike lengths or whatever it might be. But you have to remember, two if you're late with 2 to 4 tenths of a second with throttle or brake or whatever you're
Yeah,
doing, that is magnified by the speed that you're going.
right.
So what happens then is then you now try to chase that in 3 and then 4 and then 5 and then the possibilities of screwing that up. So yeah, I mean, honestly, the biggest sector I believe was sector 2, where you start looking at 3, 4, 5, 6,
Yeah,
or actually, yeah, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you've got a sector of 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and then as you come into 12, there was quite a bit of lap time. I was surprised. Sector 3 had quite a bit of lap time in it as well. But yeah, I mean, getting your rider comfortable with all those things, and again, going back to CJ, we were actually faster than we were last year. Our position wasn't as good, which we can when we get into the classes, we can talk about. Very interesting dynamic with Super
yeah.
Sport. We can talk about
I
that.
think it was the same in Super. Like there was, well, not the same, but there was a similar weirdness to the times and everything in Superbike, right? Like I sent you like my little lap time analysis and like the overall time for the race and stuff. And this year it was, I think race 1 was like, I don't know, 15 seconds slower than last year's.
Richard will have the information like I do. I mean, just looking at our riders, not
Yeah,
Superbike riders, our riders, we were half a second from old track to this track, right? So the difference that they made coming out of 10 into 11, where they put the extra curb, was a half a second.
okay.
So at least on our data. So in our case, in Super Sport, race 1 in Super Sport was actually 2 seconds faster than last year, even with this chicane change.
Hmm.
Or this turn 10 change. We were 2 seconds faster. What was the information was gobsmacking than between P1 and P2. Last year, Rocco won with a 13-second gap. 13-second.
Yeah,
Crazy. This year, if you look at that 13-second gap, 7 riders finished within that 13-second gap this year.
okay.
So basically the pace was faster and there was more people going faster than last year. So yeah, I mean, it was our in full transparency, our race 1 was slower than last year,
Okay.
but our race 2 pace, we were up 0.8 of a second over last year. So we were happy with our race 2, not happy with our race 1.
Okay. Okay. That kind of makes sense. Um, just like I was saying, like it was, you know, it was just slower overall. Like, I mean, I think Jake even saw 29s the last couple of years, and this year, like his fastest of the weekend was like a 31 something. So
Yeah, I mean, I know talking to some of the boys, and even in yeah, well, let's approach this a little bit of a different way. Brainerd is Brainerd. It is. I like going there because there's a great coffee shop that I love going to. So I like Brainerd for that, and of course it's just this very very northern rural area. I like going there.
I had fun there.
Yeah,
The place is cool. The people are cool. From what I see, I haven't been there during the MotoAmerica event. But from what I understand, there's a shitload of fans that go there. Like I think that's awesome. It's just the track itself.
yeah, it's rough. I mean, it's rough. How about that? I mean, it's rough. But I mean, where else can you go? And where else can you go and have drag, have the road racing and then have drag racing over here and then have, snowmobiles on the pond in the middle of the track, right? Snowmobile drag races
They
in the
had
middle of the pond.
snowmobile drag races
On the
in the
pond.
pond.
Yeah, in the pond. And
That's
then at the
something.
end of the day, the same snowmobiles, I guess, were going to the drag strip because we saw snowmobiles on the drag strip too.
That sounds
So,
awesome. I
oh,
mean,
dude, it's pretty.
America, right? Like,
So yeah, it's really interesting with Brainerd. There's only two categories of riders: the riders that love it and the riders that get
yeah,
the riders like a Hayden, right? A Hayden or a Bobby Fong that are just like, I can't wait to go back to Brainerd. Rocco, I cannot wait to go back to Brainerd.
yeah,
And I mean, it really is a scrapper's track. I mean,
yeah,
it doesn't have a lot of grip. It's old school, and how you approach to really separates people. Same thing, right? Where else do you have? I mean, very few tracks. There's a few, but I mean, the data has 240-mile-an-hour corners as well. I mean,
right,
very very slow. One of them's almost a first gear corner on a super
right.
sport bike. So anyway, so that's
Almost a first gear corner. Like, I mean,
depends on who. Yeah, it depends on the gearing you're using. We use second. I know some of the riders use first.
yeah,
But turn 12 was for sure pretty tight. Yeah, it's Brainerd, right? It's got, I think the bathrooms haven't been cleaned since 1973.
yeah.
So we do have that.
Is it like a porta potty situation, or is it? I
No,
don't.
it's got a bathroom, but it
Okay,
has. It
okay,
has.
yeah, yeah.
I swear to God, it has the same trough urinal that it's had
Okay,
since '73, and I'm
yeah.
not sure any water has actually flowed through it since 1973. So
Good time.
yeah, it's great. Yeah, it's good times.
Indoor outhouse vibe.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
cool.
yeah,
That's cool.
yeah.
And
So
well, at least the parking's easy.
parking is so easy. Yeah, you just roll in, and they kind of, it's so funny the dynamics between all these tracks where some of them are like, stop, let me check your credentials.
Yeah.
Everything's, and these guys are like, dude, come on in. Come, did you bring me a beer?
You going to watch the races? You betcha.
Oh
Right?
yeah, you betcha. Yeah. So, but I mean, again, the vibe in the pit continues to be very, very good. Everybody's, still having a very good time. And yeah, I mean, I think MotoAmerica has done some really good jobs with that because the vibe was very, very positive.
Yeah. I mean, Richard and I probably should save this for tomorrow, but Richard was pretty heated on our last show after Laguna
I
about
think the right
MotoAmerica.
word is jacked.
I'm just gonna say heated. He had the hair on the back of his neck standing up, the part that he didn't shave, and yeah, I mean he was pretty rough, he kind of beat up Sean Bice a bit, and whatever. I mean, I'm not gonna say he wasn't. I'm not gonna say he was wrong, it's not happening, but it was colorful, and it seems like since then conversations must have been had because they've definitely MotoAmerica's listened to some of the teams, and they've definitely stepped up their communications about like what the teams were needing. I know that I think they even helped out with a generator or something, but as far as like that, you probably saw me post it, but it was about the shit in the chicane. The original thing was a paragraph. And then next thing you know, they put out a supplemental thing that expanded on that and made it like less confusing. So you gotta kind of appreciate that they fucked up with the comms and they needed to step up, and they have. So
let's talk about that because I was actually out there on track during the track walk.
Okay.
With CJ and Chuck and Nicole and Rick were cruising around, and they were actually on the entrance of 7 talking about this. And they asked us our opinion, which I thought was wonderful. And I mean, I think them as a group were talking about this.
Yeah.
And some of them were thinking, okay, we need better communication, how we were explaining this. But the bottom line is, again, I'll give credit where credit was due, is that they wanted to make this as clear as possible.
Yeah.
And they were trying to make it as fair as possible. And they're also looking at the same ideas of, what MotoGP is doing and what World Superbike is doing. So they're trying to emulate that. Do we have the tools that they do? No,
not yet.
But not yet. but the amount of information that we do have is quite a bit more than a year ago or 2 years ago. So
Yeah.
I think a lot of things what people don't see is, oh, they can say they're doing a shitty job. But I think if you really look behind the scenes, I think they're doing a pretty outstanding job now I will bitch about one part of it later on, but where we can talk about it at this point. But
Let's talk about it, dude, because I have a comment. I'm guessing that's what it is.
to be clear, the communication, the internal communication that they have in regards to the topic that you were talking about, I think was very sound.
Yeah.
And they are trying to improve. Whether or not it's perfect or not is not the issue.
Yeah, I mean, look,
the matter is that they are trying to do something.
The goal for perfect, is perfect is so hard to achieve, right? Nobody's perfect.
Never gonna happen. Yeah,
never. Perfect's not gonna happen, right? But the thing is, like, making it so there's not any gray areas, and like it's a lot easier for, number one, all the teams to be clear on what the fuck the rule is, and then number two, because all the teams are clear of what it is, it'll probably be easier for them to apply the rule when need be, right?
Yep.
And there's no gray area, and there's no like one guy gets it applied to him and three other dudes, oh, sorry, we missed it, So, that's pretty cool of them to like step up and, like this show, even though there was a perception of that after Richard's rant, right? This show is not the shit on MotoAmerica show. Like, that's not a goal of, I love talking about motorbikes, and just happened to be that at that moment, shit was fucked up. And so we had to talk about it,
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, I get it. I mean, again, I'll give credit where credit is due, and the fact that they're chatting about this and trying to make sure that it's a safe racetrack for people. Changes were made from last year to make it safer.
Yeah.
Do there need to be more changes? Yes. Are they working on it? Yes. So
Yeah.
I think as long as it's just like anything else in life, right? It's like if you can work on something positive once per day, great. And I think they've got the right idea.
Right on.
So
then the question is, this is actually our favorite commenter guy, right? Like the guy that's never misses a show.
Do we already have comments already?
Bearded Jixer, right? You gotta love Bearded Jixer, right? So he's got a couple of questions, but basically the question I was referring to was like, what did you think of the Harley fan lap right before the Super Sport race that put oil down on the racetrack? Like, that's, is that what you were talking about? The other thing?
No. Well, no, there was a Super Sport issue, which I will get into.
Okay.
I think, again, looking at Brainerd, these people are jacked to have us there. I mean, at a coffee shop 6 miles away, they're asking us about, our weekend, and they're asking us what team we're on. I mean, it was 100% awesome. Genuine. And again, I think, again, the vibe was there. And so,
and they were asking you, you weren't even in uniform. They could tell because they didn't know you.
No, we were dumb. We were in dumbasses. We were dumbasses, and we had our shirts on. But I mean, it was just a really good feeling that, oh my God, you're at the races. That's awesome. Tell us, how's your team doing?
Yeah.
It was nice. It was genuine. And again, the vibe at Brainerd is one of the fans are very passionate about being there. And, to loop back to the baggers, which I'd like to talk more about the baggers in depth. But yeah, the baggers, they had a shit ton of fans that were there. And the amount of Harleys that went out on track they came there not only to cheer on the baggers, but to do the parade lap. So
yeah.
Could it have been at the end of the day? Yeah, that would have been nice. Yeah, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, there's not really like a pass tech situation for the fan lap.
No, so. Trust me, no. So we were watching in turn 12, and we were just like, someone's gonna eat shit in turn 12. Someone's gonna have to eat shit.
I mean, you remember the same shit used to happen every year at Laguna, right?
Oh yeah, someone in the corkscrew was gonna eat shit. That's just how it went.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah, whatever. I get the decision, but my issue on the Super Sport thing was, and I still am trying to figure this out, is obviously we had the cylinder head thing at Laguna, great.
Okay.
And we, with only a few weeks between Laguna and Brainerd, there's no way if our team decided to do a cylinder head, there's no way that we could execute a properly built cylinder head with the proper tuning. We we can't get that done. It's not going to happen, regardless of how much money it costs. So we didn't do anything about it, and we don't know if we're going to do anything about it this year or not. But bottom line is we didn't have time to do it. Well, I found out after the weekend that on Saturday morning a bulletin was sent that basically the GSXRs and the V2s got a bump in power on Saturday morning. And I mean, there's a bulletin out for it, but I didn't see the bulletin. I mean, how did any of us know this?
Right.
And so I'm a little bit chapped about that. And now whether I screwed up and didn't see the bulletin, I just certainly didn't get an email that had it.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah. Why don't they send that to all the teams, not just?
Well,
it's the same kind of shit, man. Like that's like
so
the pair valve mod in
is,
Superbike.
Here,
right?
I mean, okay, the reason for the modification was that the R6 has got a cylinder head porting.
Right.
Well, think about not all the teams had the ability to execute cylinder head porting in 3 weeks and to be able to spend $10,000 to do it, right? It didn't happen. So here we didn't do it, and yet we didn't even know about this bump. So I am a little bit I think
like didn't the R6s get that bump to compete with the other bikes? So
I'm a little unclear on how this whole trajectory worked, and I'm sure that I'll get some clarification on it. But right now, that part of it is a little bit frustrating, and I'd like there to be. Not only would I like there to be this information to be out there obviously earlier, but I'd like it to be more transparent on why it's being done, and more specifically, what are the things that are what are they getting?
Right.
Like I literally want to know, as a crew chief, as a data guy, as a rider coach, I want to know, are they getting 1.285% more throttle? Or I want to know exactly what they're getting, because it's very difficult for us to build our programs and build the competitiveness of our bikes if we don't know what's going on with the other bikes.
Right.
So a little frustrating on that part.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I did hear, I heard a little clip that MotoAmerica posted where the Bice was interviewing Jake Lewis, and Jake Lewis was talking about how slow the super sport bikes are. He's like, man, back in the day, man, they were way faster, like they're, so, I don't know.
It is, yeah, I don't know. It is, I think, yeah, I don't know. I think it's tough. I think if you look at the lap times, obviously the bikes are very, very quick, and they're getting it. They're definitely getting it done.
Right.
You have to remember too, the difference between feeling fast and being fast are two completely different things.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, he did say he's like, yeah, the bikes are moving around. He's like, man, I ain't even slid this thing yet. I'm like, I love talking Southern, by the way. Just.
Well, it's funny because Hayes talks a lot about this, which is that with the new tires, you can't get the bikes to move. The 600s just won't move because the grip is very, very good. So that's a whole nother dynamic on what's going on. So,
okay.
Anyway, so there's a little bit of my super sport bitch, and also a little bit of Brainerd, but I'm sure we can.
Yeah, Brainerd, it's just weird, like. I think I said this before, I'm a Southern California like desert rat. Like we don't have tracks with like trees and shit like you have at the Ridge, and I'm not used to seeing walls at a track, unless I've never ridden thermal, but thermal's got walls, but probably quite a bit closer than you see at Brainerd. Yeah. They're pretty far out. It's not like, it didn't look like bikes were on the verge of hitting them, but you can see.
It's old school for sure. We'll talk about, Corey Alexander's bikes here in a minute.
Dude.
but the other thing about Brainerd that's really interesting, and again, I did talk to a couple of the Superbike guys as well as some of the other riders that they felt that Brainerd has the least amount of grip out of all the tracks that MotoAmerica goes to.
Yeah.
But the one thing about Brainerd that's interesting is bikes that don't normally perform well there. It's funny because the R6 isn't a ported cylinder head. Well, R6s kicked ass last year at Brainerd.
Right.
And I think the bike is much less of an equation at Brainerd because of 1 and 2. And also even the flip flop is just, it's a lot of it has to do with the rider.
Yeah.
And so also look at the GSXR 1000, right? The GSXR
Yeah.
1000 was good. Ben Smith rolls a bike out of the trailer and podiums in stock 1000 on an R1, right? I
Right.
mean, so yeah, Ben Smith.
And when's
is
the
a
last
great
time you
rider.
saw an R1 on the podium in stock 1000?
But which is my point, right? Which is that bikes
Yeah.
that don't normally do well at Brainerd. And then look at stock 1000 with the Beamers, right? They got punched in the face.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, they did. I mean, you know,
Caleb was coming race 2, but
yeah, I mean, Caleb was going good. It looked like Ezra struggled a little bit. You know, I don't know what happened with Cam Bobier, but man, like, you know, he made that little mistake before the red flag, and then after the restart in the same corner, you know, that was a bummer because
that was a bummer.
that totally flipped the championship on its head, you know.
It did. Yeah, you know, it's funny. I mean,
It's good for us, you know. It's good
well,
for
I
our
mean,
team.
we all have our favorites, right? I mean, we
Yeah.
kind of have our favorites, but regardless of your favorite, I want to know who's going to win.
I'm not going to
And-
pretend to not be biased.
Of course.
fuck. I am like
Well-
super biased. I'm the Attack Yamaha guy. You know, like Richard's my friend. My logo's on the side of the bikes in the semi and the shit, right? So,
You know what? And
but I
again,
don't want to win like that.
I'm the biggest. I mean, I'm a fan of. I mean, I'm a fan of all these guys, right? I mean,
Yeah.
You know, obviously a fan of Gagne. I mean, I've known Jake for so many years. You know, even Cam P. I've worked with Cam P. a lot. I mean, Hayes is the fact that Hayes is in there is amazing. You know, even anyway, But the thing is, I don't want to know who's going to win. Like, I want it to be like, I don't know who's going to win, and I want it to see be a little bit of a scrap. And so, yeah, I don't know. A lot of the races were very, very good for that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Dude, congrats to PJ though, right? Holy shit, that dude's been working
It's
at
awesome.
that bike for 2 years, and he finally gets one. And then did you see Scooter Jensen, the look on his face in Winter Circle? I was like, fuck yeah, dude.
I mean, it really couldn't have happened to a better group of people.
Yeah.
I mean, the work that team, I mean, they got thrown in the deep end last year, and I mean, obviously they were, they've got some really nice motorcycles, but it's like, here's a nice motorcycle, figure it out.
You're right.
A very, very difficult task. And so, I think with Cam Bobier coming on board, I mean, I think he's really brought a whole nother dynamic of bike development to the team. And that has trickled through to everybody. I mean, with all the riders, but even, to a degree, we can talk about Corey, but look how well Corey was doing as well. So
yeah, Corey had a great, didn't Corey have a good time at the Ridge, right?
Yep. And so for, I don't know, I think that really shows that the team they work so hard at this, and just, I mean, hats off to all of them. I mean, PJ, just the tenacity that this guy has.
PJ was like the Lone Ranger for all three of them for the weekend, right? Like,
yeah, he kept at it, and I think he didn't let himself get broke by Jake.
No.
And I mean, let's face it.
He kept Jake honest. He kept Jake honest the first race, the whole race.
But I mean,
right?
that's Jake's thing, right? I mean, he'll break you. So for PJ to not get, broken there, I mean, hats off to those guys. Hats off to the team for giving him a bike that PJ could ride. And obviously it wasn't perfect, especially on some of the entry stuff. But I mean, oh my gosh, I super impressed with his performance and the team's performance. I mean, hats off to those guys.
Yeah, and it looked like in race 2, Heron was right there too until he broke. So. I wonder what happened there. I wonder if it looked like maybe a clutch thing, or I don't know, fuel.
I don't know. Right? It's a Heron. I don't know. I mean, Heron. I mean, we've said it a bunch of times. I mean, I don't know if there's anybody in the paddock that has the talent that guy has, and I mean, it's unbelievable. But it's just how obviously emotional his riding is.
Yeah.
How up and down it is because of it. And it seems like obviously when he can underdog it a little bit, he performs better because there's less pressure, which is what emotional riders do. But no, he was definitely coming. And that would have been a good scrap for sure. And while we're talking about Superbike stuff, I mean, there's a bunch to talk about. I
Yeah,
mean,
dude. I mean, we got to talk about Corey writing off 2 bikes, dude. Like that poor guy, dude. Like, I mean, he flung one into the weeds the first, first day, right? Just
I don't know how far that gas tank
dude.
traveled, but it traveled a long
Like
way.
they went that team went home with like 3 bikes in boxes, right? I mean, that's awful.
Well, I think they showed up with 6 bikes and went home with 3.
Right.
But
Yeah, something
yeah,
like that. Yeah.
rough. Yeah, I mean, I got to tell you, I mean, anybody that thinks like like riding a superbike or superbike development, it's like whatever the most difficult thing in the world is you think there is, times it by 100, and that'll get you to the starting line with a superbike. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think people understand how hard that development is. It's crazy. Yeah,
Yeah, I
it's
mean, I know because I have
sure.
inside with Richard, and even Richard he was planning on some stuff to test and things, and because of things that happened during the season, Cam P being out and stuff, it just consumed a lot of his time, and then repairing things too didn't help. So then he's like, dude, he's like, I gotta shelf this until later. So,
Yeah, I mean, that's it. I mean, there's
you know,
people. It's hard to describe the infinite possibilities that
yeah,
these bikes have. Not to mention, obviously, the differences in what the ride. One rider on one bike to a rider on another bike adds a whole nother variable.
yeah.
And yeah, yeah, people. I mean,
It was
I
pretty
just
interesting. It was pretty interesting having have the old man get the call
yeah, we'll
to
talk about that. But I mean, like, I'm just on the super sport level.
yeah,
And even for me, the possibilities are just are almost endless with the things that we have, let alone, I mean, we're not even in the same continent as a super bike.
right.
So yeah, let's talk about Josh. I mean, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
first, I
Legend,
mean,
living legend.
yeah, I mean, awesome. It was great to see him, get his 87th. I mean, that was, and the bottom line is that he punched everybody in the face. I mean, he rode well. He was fast from the get-go. He had the bit between his teeth, and he did a good job. And that goes. It's like I was mentioning that people either like Brainerd or hate Brainerd. There seems to be two camps to there. The R6 does seem to work well there, but the bottom line is he came out swinging. Yeah, it was really good to see, and the fact that he got that win. Yeah, and then on the Superbike, I think he struggled a little bit in the beginning.
Yeah,
Obviously, I mean, he's ridden the bike before, but he's probably never had the opportunity to have the team around him to figure shit out.
right.
And I don't know any of the ins and outs of it, but he didn't look 100% comfortable with it at first. Started going well. Yeah, he had that little tip over, but he fixed it. And then, dude, race 2, I think at one point he was the fastest guy on the track. I
Yeah.
mean, it was an impressive performance.
And he did it like he totally skipped the podium and everything, and he's sitting there taking a breather, a couple of drinks of water, and going right back out and doing the superbike race like old school.
Yep.
And he comes
Yeah.
from that era too, so
Oh yeah,
yeah,
again, yeah. The day, yeah, it's hard for people to realize that the Duhamels, the Chandlers, the Goberts,
Yates,
I mean, they did two classes, man,
yeah.
and that's just what you did.
They just didn't do 2 races a weekend per class. It was like
Yeah,
back then you would only get 1 race, so it was like a little bit. Maybe it might be a little bit easier.
They started doing the 2 race thing a little bit later, so some of them had it, but yeah, it was definitely. I mean, this day and age is definitely not easy, especially
Yeah.
with how competitive everybody is. But yeah, the bottom line is he did a great job. It was awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm glad he got his W.
And then you know what? Like, how about Fogger?
So let's talk. Yeah, it's funny.
Like, I had the dude on last night. I'm so stoked I had him on because
I haven't watched it yet.
man,
I mean, Bobby,
he's such a good dude. He just like emits this like good dude energy. I fucking love it. You can't hate that guy ever. You can't even not like him.
No, he's so. Bobby and I mean, we don't talk a lot. I mean, I see him at the weekends but I actually raced against Bobby in 2006. My last real year of racing was 2006. And Bobby and I were battling for the 600 championships those years. And so I was beating him up until the middle of the year. And then I crashed and Bobby ran over me. So
good times.
anyway, so yeah, so we do have a little bit of that relationship. But I mean, if there's there's another guy that's just a scrapper that he just wants to ride. He just wants to win. And I really like the way that he rides a motorcycle. I like the things that he does. I'm a huge fan. And I mean, I'm also, I worked with his bagger crew chief, Robert Ward, for a couple of years. He was Hayden's crew chief. And I mean, Bobby and Robert get along great. And Robert has, I can't even tell you.
I talked to him today.
Oh,
I might have Robert on the show next week.
Dude, Robert is like a hero to me. I mean,
Me too.
He knows, like, every time I talk to him, I realize how much I don't know. And it's just, he's just amazing. And he's a guy that's not afraid to throw a hand grenade, but it's a very calculated hand grenade. And the fact that he's worked with Bobby for so long, I mean, did you see how fast they went on the baggers? What the?
Yeah, dude. Every weekend that baggers are out there, I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah,
like,
unbelievable.
They're just gonna scrap Super Sport and just have everybody race baggers. Like, about the same lap time, pretty much. Pretty close. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they're. I mean, it's impressive to see what they're doing. I mean, if you watch those things, I don't think you. Again, it's.
How about Jeremy McWilliams and that fucking slide? The crash that didn't crash. Like, how does that happen, dude?
I don't think people realize how hard those guys are riding. If you go watch them, like,
by the way, Bearded Jixer is pointing out that Bobby also not only rode bagger and the Superbike, but also worked the Dainese booth all weekend.
He did. He actually brought. So out of the blue, we're sitting there, and he shows up with CJ's leathers that were fixed. And he goes, "Hey, I rebagged these," and you're just like.
Thanks.
Like you got time for this. No, he's awesome. But yeah, I mean, if people could see like how, like, up close, how much lean angle and throttle those guys are using on those bikes, it is unbelievable, the stuff that they're doing. And again, so anyway, hopefully you get Robert on. Robert's.
Yeah, I think I'm going to try to get him on next week. I was like, dude, he's like, oh, we need to talk about what we're going to talk about. I'm like, dude, we talk about what we'd always talk about just on YouTube. And he's like, oh, cool. Sounds good.
I'm just like he's like I'm a fanboy.
I have a Rob Ward story, like, from Rich Oliver's Mystery School, where I put him into the hay bales. Because it's me, right? Yeah, I put Rob Ward in the hay bales.
Sorry.
So,
yeah.
So, yeah.
Did you just give him the wave? Like, sorry. Yeah.
Kind of. Yeah, like a pinky off kind of thing. My bad.
There you go.
My bad, bro.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
And he's like, man, you guys are competitive here.
Well, any of us dumbasses on two wheels is not a good
idea.
But yeah, and then the other interesting bagger story as well is that where are the factories? Like, I mean, think about it. Like, look who's up front right now. I mean, so
Fonger is Roland Sands' bike.
Yeah, right? I mean, but and then Hayden as well, Rispoli. I mean, it's not that the other guys are doing bad, but I mean, it just shows you how competitive this is.
Yeah.
Even though
could that be an example of like what you were saying earlier about some of the bikes that aren't normally front at Brainerd brings them to the front? Could it be a little bit of that?
I don't know. I think in that case, because you've seen, I mean, you saw, some of the Vance and Hines bagger stuff at Laguna for sure. Obviously, the factory teams are also very, very fast. And I don't know, I think that there might be just, and I'm completely speculating because I know how hard the factory teams are working. Trust me, they're not sleeping tonight because they're working on stuff. But I think, the independent teams might have a little bit of freedom on trying stuff that you normally wouldn't try. And Robert would be obviously a great source to talk about this. But the bottom line is they're getting stuff done.
They're stacked with talent too. That class is full of fucking
you don't know who's going to win.
Dudes.
But you take the mechanical part.
I mean, you got Rispoli, you got Fonger, you got K-Dubs, you got Hayden Gilliam,
McWilliams.
Jeremy McWilliams, Tyler O'Hara. Like, you got a grid stacked full of just lunatics.
Look what Jake Lewis
You
is doing
know?
now too. Jake Lewis is Jake Lewis went from, sorry Jake, he went from like, barely being able to wobble around the track to now like complete stud.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I mean, that just shows you that how hard and how competitive that deal is. Yeah, I mean, honestly, it is impressive.
Yeah, the bagger dude Cole King. I talked about it before, but like I guess he had a pretty nasty crash on Friday and broke his collarbone. And he said to me, "Yeah, man, Possum Holler got me." Like he was calling Brainerd Possum Holler, and I was just like, "Dude, that's kind of funny." I don't know about possums in that area, but that shit's hilarious.
It,
So
well, yeah, that track is certainly something else. Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of aspects that just don't belong on a racetrack there, but somehow they definitely get it
you know
done.
what, man? I did dig up that old video of Miguel on a 600 there on the old track, the Donnybrook course.
Yep, I watched those guys for a
Man,
couple of years.
you know what? That would be awesome. That would be super dangerous. Like I mean, going down the drag strip forever and then tipping in turn one from the drag strip.
So I was lucky enough to be there working. I worked actually on the Valvoline team back then,
Okay.
and I was drugged down to turn one. They're like, "You got to come see this," and I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I go down there, and I was there for two practices. I got to see the 600s and I got to see Superbike, and the 600s would come pinned down the front straightaway, and they went downshift. They'd be pinned in sixth, and they'd turn in and just let the thing hit they did it right. Either
Yeah.
two things would happen. They'd either hit the rev limiter and let the rev limiter take care of the speed mitigation, and then they'd stand the bike up, or you could hear the motors load up with the G-force, like, and just got deep.
Man.
It was, and I mean, you were literally, it's kind of like the Road America wall. You're
Yeah.
literally
Right
3 feet
there.
from this.
Yeah.
I mean, again, that was like one of my top 5. I don't believe this is like happening. Yeah,
Yeah.
unbelievable, unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, if you watch that video I posted, it's Miguel's race, I think in like 2001 maybe, and it's on board, and like every lap you listen for him to lift, and
Nope.
he does not lift, dude. He's just
They do a
like,
downshift. Yeah, do a
like,
do a downshift for 2, and that's it.
yeah,
Get
yep,
after it.
yeah. It's that's something, man. That's really something.
Let's before we. I'm sure we got a ton. Do we have a lot of questions? I'm sure we got some questions.
We have
But
some.
one in Superbike that I want to talk a little bit about is honestly, Posh did a great job. I'll again give credit where credit is due, and Posh has stepped up a little bit. So I'm impressed to see that. I mean, he ran well. I think he qualified on the second row.
Yeah.
It was very, very impressive. So yeah, good overall result for him.
Yeah, you know what? I have something. What do you think it was that slowed the lap time down? I haven't talked to Richard yet. I haven't looked at the data or anything like that. But like I was telling you before, man. Like I have the little stats right here. Last year's race distance was about 15 seconds faster than this year's, and Jake's best time was about 1 second slower this year versus last year.
So again, Richard.
And then oddly enough, in 2021, Jake went even faster. So I don't understand. Is it the tires? Is it I've heard the tires are a big factor.
I can't speak for Superbike, but I can tell you on the Super Sport. I mean, when we looked at the data, we were half like 0.55 seconds, half second slower through that section. So when I overlaid those sections and I took a look at a lot of laps, it was just over half a second for us, just barely over. So for us, we lost about a half a second with that change. Now why for them their lap times were about a second slower? I don't know. And you said, yeah, I mean, 15
like the
seconds.
overall the race distance for the winner when Jake won the race was 15 seconds slower than his race
Yeah, and then for
time
them, I mean,
last
based
year.
on their race distance, that's probably like 0.8 a lap. I mean,
Yeah.
that's so. I don't know. And again, for the 600s overall, we were quicker. Who knows? Maybe the temperature was higher. Maybe the tires for them didn't have as much grip.
Yeah.
It's really difficult to say. I'd be interested to hear what Richard says on that. Um, oh, speaking of that, do you have that? We should have that. Can you post that picture of Gagne turning into 7?
Oh my God. Maybe. Let me see.
Yeah. So yeah, that was every lap that we would do that. Literally, like everybody around us would go, "Oh,
Oh,
he
dude.
made it."
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
Let me see.
great.
Let me share my screen.
Yeah, this was pretty epic.
Let's see.
There was nobody that was obviously doing what he was doing in there.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. That. Do you see it? Yeah, dude. That guy is
yeah,
a fucking
that one was
lunatic,
one
man.
of the that was one of the more conservative turn-ins for him.
Dude, he's like damn near in the grass like every lap, dude.
Yes. Yeah, there
Yeah.
was. I mean, there was a few laps where you'd get you get a wisp of dirt off that one.
Man.
Yeah, that was good. That was good. I'm sure they got Richard's attention a few times.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Jake did that last year as well, where he turned in and I think that's one of those things. Like for instance, one of the report cards that we're using with our riders is you turn in on the throttle, right? So you're
Yeah.
turning in on the throttle, and if a rider likes their bike and the bike is working well, they're going to try to run it in there, and they actually want to hit a rev limiter, or they got something that gives them an indication of how well they're running it in there. And if you got confidence in your bike, you're going to open that up and run the thing in there. And Jake obviously had some confidence in his front of his bike to do that. In spades.
Literally every lap. Every lap he was doing that
Yeah.
shit. It was crazy. That's awesome, man. Okay, so I have a couple of questions coming in. Well, the nice biker says he wanted to be number 96. So I don't know what's up with that. Bearded Jixer says, and I know he's talking about the Mallory Dobbs narrow miss thing, but he
That was
says
insane.
he says pretty gnarly crash in the Super Sport race too. What are you allowed to do during a red flag? I know the tires are a no-no unless Dunlop approves. Like, how you want to talk about that? But let's talk about the Mal Dobbs thing first, because that fucking bike, like, literally, I don't know how. Like, she didn't even move, and the thing's just like, like kind of over her head almost. Like,
I haven't talked to her about that. We just talked about a race a little bit in Park for May.
yeah,
But that was one of those ones where it happened, and then every single person in our pit like looked at each other, and then like what just happened?
yeah,
And then looked back. That was I don't have an explanation for that one, but
she said she closed her eyes and hoped it worked out.
well, it did. Yeah, it did. Yeah,
that's what she posted on Instagram or something. I was like, oh my god.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that was nuts. And she had a good weekend, so it was nice to see. Nice to see her actually, with some good results. Very, very quick, very quick.
Yeah.
So I know she got a little bit of help this weekend. I think Mike was there. Mike Castro was there. Fuzzy was there.
Okay.
Yeah, he was there, and I think he was helping. I mean, again, she's been trying to do this thing on like a shoestring. Getting help from Don's been busting his ass to help her. One person helping her, I literally can't even imagine how hard that is.
Right.
And I mean, for her to show up at tracks where she's never been there, he doesn't know anything. I asked her once about setup. I don't know what track it was at. I was at Road America, or it might have been Road America. I said, hey, do you have a setup sheet? She goes, no, we haven't had time to do one. And she goes, I haven't changed the bike since Road Atlanta. And this was anyway. So I think Mike was, I know the fact that she's getting it done. Yeah. I mean, the fact that she's
awesome.
she's getting it done. So
that's kind of awesome.
I think, with Mike being there, they finally were able to do it. Cause I can't emphasize how hard it is just to keep your arms around getting out to get on track.
Yeah.
So I mean, her team was just on the rev limiter trying to do that. So yeah, it was great to see that she got up there and actually got
and I guess both those guys walked away. I did see, I can't remember what the dude's name is, but the guy who that guy's bike took out, like that guy posted a GoFundMe today. So he's like, hey, it's my rookie season. Had a really crash. It wasn't even my
Brainerd is not
fault.
nice to motorcycles.
Dude, there was a lot of bikes destroyed this
Bra-
past weekend.
Brainerd is not nice to motorcycles. It is.
And like
it is
Richard said, you know, like with the thing with Bobier, and he made a little mistake, right? But you know, Gagne made that mistake last year, you know, in that same area that we just shared on the screen, right? And then the year before, in the same corner that Bobier
Yeah.
highlighted, the year before,
Yeah.
Gagne
Yeah.
ended up winning a race with the bent triple clamps
Yeah. I mean,
after the restart.
yeah. I mean, Jake, I mean, that could have gone either way for Jake, right?
Totally.
I mean,
Yeah.
he rode it for whatever reason. The tire was cold. Who knows what the deal was, but basically rode the thing off the tire and low sided off the rear.
Yeah.
Where it could have just been easy where the thing pitched him. So yeah, I mean, that's just unfortunately why the sport is so freaking hard. And anyway,
And
what else?
what happened to the win streak?
So yeah, I mean, I don't know Chavi that well, but again, that goes back to some bikes just don't work well. Even Heron
Yeah.
last year was not. I mean, Heron I think
Yeah.
qualified well last year, but didn't. You know, he got punched in the face just because. I mean, that's just how things go sometimes.
Right.
Same thing this year. I mean, Chavi had a pretty good race too, but they were beating up on him pretty hard. But the first race was tough. Q was rough, and I know he was just not comfortable at this track. So
Yeah. Yeah, he just you know, I mean, is it okay to focus this show? The Ducati sucked there, you know?
yeah, pretty much for
I
whatever
mean,
reason. For
yeah.
whatever reason, it just was it was. I mean, you know, again, even Heron. I mean, I won't say that he was struggling because he was definitely starting to pick it up. But even for the most part, he was in the pits a lot. He'd go out and rip 2 or 3 quick laps and then basically be back in the pits again. So
Yeah.
he had a little bit of pace, but it wasn't very consistent for whatever reason.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, I mean, again, this goes back to why some bikes work well in some places and other places they don't. Very interesting.
Here the nice biker, he wants to know what you think a good starter bike for an amateur 1000 racer. He says he wants to get into club racing soon, but can't decide on what bike.
Don't
You
get a
want to get
1000.
it?
Don't get a
You
1000.
don't have a bike yet, but you want to start on the 1000.
Yeah,
I mean, there's people that do it, you know.
I mean, yeah, I don't.
If you already have 1000,
Great.
go get some
Yeah.
race bodywork and do it, right? I mean,
I mean, that's great. But if you don't have 1000, I think there's a lot of options if you want to stay in the sport for a long time. And what I mean by that, that's not like a crash thing. That's like a motivation thing. What I mean by that is I've been obviously been doing this a really long time. And especially the last 6 or 7 years,
Yeah.
as bikes have gotten faster and the more electronics that have come in, I've had to take more people off of in BMWs because they're so fast that they can't absorb what's happening, and it actually stunts their training. So they don't. Their brain doesn't have to process. So
the guy says he's been riding for years.
that doesn't tell me anything. Doesn't mean
Yeah.
he's a competent rider. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
not. I don't know him, but it doesn't matter. He could ride for 30 years, but it doesn't mean.
Well,
what I'm
you know,
saying-
being on the other side of the fence for so many years, you know, I was part of government and all that, running race clubs and starting them and not running them anymore. One of the things that we always spot, and you know, I've had this conversation with Berto many times, but from AFM, and the rate of attrition, right? And what happens is, you know, a lot of guys, it's like 2 or 3 years and you're out.
Yep, transit.
So what happens is you start out, let's just say you start out on a R1M, because I'm a Blue
Great.
Crew guy, right? So you start out on R1M and you're like, yeah, this thing's bitching. And you're having a great time at the track day and you're like, oh, you know, I need to do new racer school. You step up, you do your amateur season, right? And you start doing pretty good in your amateur season, man. You're winning some races, podiums, right? And then taking home some prize money. And then you get you get promoted to expert. And then in your expert, you get kicked in the fucking balls repeatedly. You come home, you're missing teeth, you're buying parts and everything, and all of a sudden you're like, what the fuck am I doing this for? And quit.
Yeah,
And
that's exactly it.
and some of us are dumber than others and keep doing it repeatedly, right? But for the most part, that's the reality. But if you start out with something like that you don't give a shit about, you're like, oh man, you know what? If I had this, if I try this, and then if you wad the thing, you don't give a shit, and then you just get another one. I mean, it's just easier to stay longer if you don't start with something so expensive from the
If you
jump.
remember what I said during the last show when we talked about part of the why
Why
are people quitting? Why are
Yeah.
people quitting? Right?
Yeah.
It's because you're not having fun anymore, right?
Right.
Or you don't see a way forward. So to this guy, right?
By the way, Bearded Jixer says, don't listen to them, nice biker. Buy a V4. That's Ernie, by the way, and he rides a Suzuki, and he's got a beard, so I don't know if I trust Bearded Jixer too much on that.
Again, having trained, if it depends on what your goals and your expectations are, right? Because everybody's different. So I'm just giving you my experience as a rider coach for multiple decades that I've had to pull people off big bikes because they're getting frustrated that they're not going faster because the bike, the amount of brain space it takes for them to just stay on the fucking motorcycle is harder than the training.
Right.
So this is why, again, when we had the RIC programs, we trained on stock 600s on street tires, right?
Yeah.
So one, you're on a pace that you're on a bike that you could actually absorb the pace, on a grip that you could actually control the grip.
Yeah.
So it didn't matter what bike these people were riding. This is what we did. And there was times where, JD Beach would show up and we'd say, guess what? You're riding the R3 today. That's your bike today. Guess what? You got to go figure it out.
I remember that. I don't know why I remember that. You made him ride a stock R1 one time, and it was like,
I made
the OEM tires on it.
Correct. And they all rode FZ1s. Hey, guess what? You're riding the FZ1 today. Figure it out.
Yeah.
So you've got to be able to, you've got to be able to figure out all these different platforms and have the brain space to figure it out. But again, if you're not hitting apexes on a 400, guess what? You're not going to hit apexes on a 1000.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a guy a couple years ago that was on a BMW 1000, and you could see it, like everything about his body language and everything said, oh my god, if this thing didn't have the nanny shit on it, he would totally fucking die, right? And so we finally talked some sense into him. We're like, dude, maybe get something else. And he was kind of a guy that could afford to just scrap that thing and go another direction. So he did an R3 for a little bit. He had a Ninja 400. I think he ended up with a RS 660 at the end. But this dude, he was making those same mistakes on the 400, but the 400 wasn't letting him get away with it. But it also didn't have the dire consequences that you would get on 1000.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Do you start off as a black belt or you start off as a white belt?
I don't know.
Well, are you going to jump in the ring with a black belt? You've never been there before, right? Right? You're going to get punched. You're going to get punched in the face, right?
You start out boxing with Mike Tyson? I don't think so.
So I think, again, it depends on goals and expectations. If his goal is, hey, I'm in this for a really long time, I know that I have a lot to learn, and I'm going to stick with my process, and my expectation is I'm going to suck and I'm going to continue to get better. Awesome. Great.
Yeah.
Keep at it. But I can tell you that very rarely do I see that on a newer rider on a 1000.
Yeah. I mirror that statement as well. Like I said, I've been doing this for 20 something years. Been doing the track day thing for 23 years, man. So, I've been getting to see it, and I started 2 different clubs that are still operating.
Yep.
And, that's the same kind of thing that you see, all the time. It's the same movie over and over again, dude. The original wasn't even good. So stop trying to make another sequel. You know what I mean? So
what other questions we got?
Okay. Let's see. Yeah, that's about it, dude. There's the fan laugh about the Harley thing. Yeah, that's I want to go back to that Jeremy McWilliams thing because like I don't think you did you see that?
I did see it once. Yeah, I have to say, I did write myself some notes from this, and
Yeah,
I'm going over.
I wrote notes too, but
Yeah.
I never use
The
notes.
one that we didn't cover is free for all parking and traffic control. There was the
Okay,
guy that was directing the traffic that
yeah,
would wave people this way and then wave people this way at the same time. And it's just like, figure it out. It was great. Yeah, I thought, I don't know, maybe it's, I am going to Indy at the end of the year. So maybe it was like trying to figure out the whole, traffic situation there. So
man, yeah. Like I was thinking that, and then like I said, going back to the Jeremy McWilliams thing, I definitely made note of that. Like those guys are all, like I said before, like that class is stacked with talented
big
lunatics,
time,
right?
big time.
And but the fact is that dude fully crashed that motorcycle and then didn't. Like, how does that even? That you saw how far that rear end of that thing was stepped out. I mean, it was way out there. Like the bag was dragging on the ground, dude. Like
And maybe the bag is what helped keep it up. I don't
maybe, dude.
know. It just stayed there and went, and then I was waiting for him to
Yeah.
like let go, and it's like his leg was in the right spot, maybe the bag was in the right spot, and it just came back up. Unbelievable.
Yeah, man. Okay, so let's see here. Buy a jet from Steve Main. Main? He says he wants to know what's the favorite rider you've worked with and why? Because you worked with a bunch of dudes. Like I can't remember if you asked this before, but you've worked with a hell of a lot of people. So I mean,
I've been super blessed to work with him in a lot of different. And I mean, I don't necessarily have favorites, but yeah, I mean, I'm just, yeah, gosh, trying to think. So, I mean, even in the Freddie days, I mean, obviously we were there and we got to work with Nikki Hayden for a couple of years. So I got to ride with Nikki, and that was a very blessed experience. And that was really what the humbling, like that was really an introduction to humility. And the story of that, the first time that I was there with Nikki, second time that I was there with Nikki, he actually just won the world championships, and they were going from, I think, the 990s to the 800s or whatever they were doing.
right.
And so he came to go work on some stuff. And this is literally, I don't know, 2 months after he wins the world championship. And we're in little Freddie Spencer dressing room, and everybody says hi. And he says, "Hey, I'm going to be working on, these couple things today. Just let me know how I'm doing. Like, stop me, and if you see something, and let me know how I'm doing." It's just like, but that's a guy that
So
just
world champion comes up to you and says, "Hey, can you check me out?"
well, I mean, it I mean, yeah, I mean, but
That's
that
awesome,
was the
man.
idea. But that was it. I mean, luckily, I mean, obviously, I mean, I was there, so I mean, I had a little bit of credibility because I was there in the, as an instructor with Freddie.
Yeah, you
And
had the name tag and everything.
yeah, it was great. I mean, God, I mean, I was still trying to figure my shit out then for sure. Yeah, I mean, I would stop at lunch instead of ride, because normally at lunch I would ride and work on my stuff. I'd watch him. I'd literally stop on the side of the track and watch him go through a corner. I'd go to another corner, watch, and then sometimes he'd stop and he'd say, "Hey, I'm doing this. What do you see?" I mean, those were really, I mean, those were, I would leave with more questions than answers.
Yeah.
But the fact that, I mean, how you get good is you're curious, right? So you get curious, so you ask questions, and because you ask questions, and you can dive down this thing. And I was just enthralled with what he was doing and why he was doing it, and the fact that I could spend 30 seconds asking him something
So
was huge.
you'd
So
see him do something and you'd say, "Hey, Nikki, why are you doing it this way?"
100%.
Or why
Yeah,
are
I mean,
you?
yeah. So like for instance, I mean, I'd like to think that if you go back and actually look at it, this goes all the way back to like 2007. Like the term "the slowest point of the corner" is one that I would like to think that I coined that back then. That actually came from Nikki, because what Nikki called it was, what Freddie used to call it was the direction change, and and I didn't understand what Freddie meant by direction change. I was thinking like the bike's like turning,
Yeah.
and what he meant was basically when the bike had finished decel, got pointed, and then started excel. And so, for instance, when Nikki was working, and I can remember like it was yesterday, turn 7 and 8 at Vegas inside road course. And, he was working on, he said, well, on the 800s, he goes, I'm trying to like have roll speed, but I'm trying to get my direction change done as early as possible. So I'm working on how slow I needed to be to make that happen. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. You're working on the slow part of the corner. Freaking write that down. And so, but I mean, without asking and trying to figure it out, I never would have done that. So, yeah, I mean, so anyway,
Nikki Hayden.
yeah. Anyway, it's just a very humbling experience, and humbling for me just to see this guy's humility and the amount of laps this guy put in working on stuff. I mean, again, people don't realize like the guy that your hypothetical R1M guy is, they enter the sport and yeah, they can get through their amateur year, and then they maybe they get expert. Well, I mean, that's just the entry. You got to be an expert, but that's just the entry fee. That's just you're just now starting.
Yeah.
And then as you get better and you get within 2 seconds of the winner or the leader,
yeah,
that's just starting your journey.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I'm one of the ones that stayed forever and kind of a glutton for punishment in that way. But I've seen some success. I've won some races, and I'm older and more brokener now, but I still can kind of go out there and have a good time.
Yeah,
if it stops being fun, I'll quit, because there's no fucking point doing this.
Well, and that's where if people would simply understand that the process is where all the magic is, right?
Yeah.
The fact that where all the real work is when it sucks and it's hard. And let me give you an example with CJ this weekend. It would have been like the first session didn't go great. We were actually the first time this year that we were slower in FP1 than we'd been in any track this year.
Okay.
And so it's like that. Okay, that's like, well, okay, we're slower. That's not great. And it would have been easy to go, Brainerd sucks. It's not a great day. I don't know why I don't like this track. It's too hot out. And instead, it's like, okay, now it's time to go to work. So it's like, now's the time where, you download with your rider, you ask the questions, you look at the data, you go back and ask the questions, and, you stay up till freaking midnight. In my case, looking at data to say, what do we need to do? And basically, if you stick with the process, and you don't give up, we ended up with a better motorcycle, and we ran our best lap times, beating our times from last year on Sunday. We could have given up on Friday and said, I fucking hate Brainerd. Instead, it's like, I'm going to do what it takes to get good, and I'm going to stick with the process and not give up. So
there's a thing I say to the guys I'm working with, and I'm like, and it's, how bad do you want it? I get in their face and I'm like, look, man, you're butthurt that you're not faster, and you're wondering how I can do that to you on a street bike. How bad do you want it? And then I tell them what they could do, and then I hear excuses of why I'm wrong. I'm like, okay, well, how bad do you want it then? Maybe you should try that, and if it works out, keep trying it.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. So
talking about USM powers.
I mean, I get this all the time, right? Whether you have, so I know we're segueing here, but I think it's an important segue.
Yeah.
Is an athlete, right? An athlete is built up of 3 components, right? They're built up of their technique, their physical fitness, and their mental fitness.
Yeah.
All 3 of those have to be looped, and all are equal to perform at 100%. So if any one of those lags, then you're going to have a problem. Right. But the thing is, when you look at it, many of those things, almost all of them, can be done off the bike. So whether you're trading 20 hours a week, or 2 hours a week, or 20 minutes, or 2 minutes.
I was gonna segue into like, what do I do if I can't get to the track to train? Like,
dude, where do you even want to start? I mean, we could.
The armchair exercises.
There's so many. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean.
Here, let me give a clutch. The clutch. Yeah, I
mean,
brake release.
you could train on 2 seconds a day. Two
Okay.
seconds a day. How about this? I'm getting better exits. Just tell yourself I'm going to work on my exits. I'm going to get better exits. Or how about I'm going to work on brake pressure at turn in. That took less than 2 seconds. I mean, it's there's so many things that you can do. But yeah, off the bike, I mean, looking if you have video, obviously looking at your video. If you got data, looking at your data, looking at a track map, writing down your reference points, and then
Yeah.
again working on your physical fitness. So getting fitter, getting your strength training done, getting your core training done. You know, how about this? Stand on your tiptoes for 1 minute a day. 1 minute a day, stand on your tiptoes. You're going to be better with your feet on the foot pegs. I mean, it's just there's infinite things that you can do. You can meditate. You can work on your breathing exercises for 1 minute a day. I mean,
Do an
I
entire bicycle ride standing up.
oh, I broke a seat post once where I had to do that. That was not that got old really fast. But yeah, I mean, so the excuses I I'm actually
Yeah.
I don't do well with them.
Yeah, like I was gonna ask you this as a coach, what do you do when you have a guy that like you explain something, you show them how to do it, you show it on video what they're doing, and then they come back with you with a bunch of excuses as to why you're wrong and why what you're saying won't work.
So there's so there's some aspects that make up somebody that wants to improve.
Right.
I've been blessed enough to do. I've done 5 keynote speaker talks. 5. So I've done a keynote speaker talk. I did one for Google. I did one for Nike. I've done one for Yelp. I've done one for, and then 2 private companies that I did keynote speaker talks. And my keynote speaker talks are a little bit different because I've had to earn my living doing this. So I've had to filter out the people that actually want to get good versus the people that say they want to get good, right?
Okay. Yeah.
There's a difference between saying you want to do it and actually going and execute it. Well, I can't make money off of the people that say they want to do it. I can make money off the people that want to do it. So I've had to figure out what separates those people from the people from I've had to separate the people that want to do it or say they want to do it versus the
Yeah.
people that will actually execute it. And yeah, so the things that you have to look at to get or for you to have to get good. And of course, the first one is you gotta have humility. So you gotta have humility. The second one is you I'm not your friend. So when I sit down in front of somebody and we talk as a coach and a client, I literally will go through these things, right? So first one, you gotta have humility, right?
Yeah.
Second one is I'm not your friend. I'm not trying to be your friend. I don't give a fuck. You're not going to get a Christmas card from me, and I'm not going to buy you Starbucks at birthday.
What?
But but you will have my full undivided attention in getting you around the racetrack as fast as humanly possible. So that's one, right? You got to accept feedback, right? So you have to think about that. So to your point, how many people aren't ready for feedback? So I
Right.
literally will have to say to somebody, so in your case, Dustin, it's
I
you would
I
start
have an example from you that I could share
well,
if you like.
so but it
That
starts off with,
totally
with your
totally
guy.
lines up with the shit that you're saying right now.
So it goes it goes back to your guy, which is you start off the conversation with, are you ready? Are you ready to hear some feedback? And how they answer that question will determine whether they actually want to improve or not. So yeah, so first one, you got to have humility. I'm not your friend. You got to be able to put your feedback
Yeah.
in. Fourth one is you got to put your reps in. Dude, you
Yeah.
got to put your reps in. If you're not consistent putting your reps in, not going to happen. And the last one is you got to do it the best in the world are doing. So if those 5 things cannot be adhered to or agreed to, I I'm sorry to be a dick. You're not going to get there.
Wow.
Sorry.
Wow, man. That I
So
mean,
so the
okay.
JD Beaches, the
Yeah.
Hayden Gillums, the Matt Skolts, the Nick McFaddens, the Jason Aguilars, all those guys that we worked with, they had to go through that. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's rough. It is rough. But I mean, what do you think Michael Phelps has had to go through? What do you think Steph Curry's had to go through? So you want the result, but if you're not going to work for it, you're
Yeah.
not going to get the result.
Yeah.
Harsh, I know.
Bearded Gixxer has a couple of things. He wanted to know, number one, I'm saying this before I share my Ken Hill coaching story, brutally honest feedback. But yeah, he wants to know if you ever worked with Spies.
No, never worked with Speeds. Speeds was a little bit before my time, as like I was coaching like at a local level. I was working actually. I mean, I was at the Freddie school, and I was also at the Yamaha school. But Speeds had gone to Europe after we sort of got a relationship with Yamaha with him. So
Yeah.
no, I have not worked with Speeds.
Okay. And then he also says that he's going to be at Buttonwillow Saturday to get some reps. So I don't know. I guess I'm
Reps
going to
on
try
what? Reps on what?
reps on his Gixxer, I guess.
Reps doing what?
Yeah. What are you working on, Bearded
What are you working
Gixxer?
on? I want to know what you're working
You know what?
on.
I'm gonna work on with. I'm gonna work with him. I'll take a couple of sessions with him. See what
Great.
he's got.
Great. Oh, you got my new rider this weekend too.
Oh yeah, dude. I'm working with that guy. I think on
Dude,
Saturday.
Isn't that awesome?
That's
That
pretty
is-
great. Like I'm gonna basically teach this dude how to ride a motorcycle, and then I'm gonna take him out on track. I'm probably gonna give the guy a 2-up ride as well.
I love it.
I think I think I'm pretty confident that I'll be able to have him riding a motorcycle inside of 3 hours.
I know you will. I'm not even worried. Not even worried. Not even
Like
worried.
I think this kid's gonna be having a big smile on his face, and I'll have him ripping laps around the racetrack on his
think it's great.
KTM.
I love it.
Brand new guy, like brand new. So it should be fun. It's definitely a challenge, but no problem. I got this.
I think can we pause there for a minute and let's talk about that with coaches. A lot of times coaches only want to work with the super fast guys or the best. That's actually if you can't work with somebody that's brand new, that's never ridden a motorcycle, then honestly, you have really no fucking business working with somebody on the top end.
Yeah.
I'll be an asshole about that.
Yeah.
That's the way it is.
What did I tell you when you asked me first? I was like, sure, dude.
That's correct.
I didn't even pause.
Well, it's like, I mean, yeah, I mean, that's like last weekend at track time. I mean, I set half a day aside to work with new riders that new to the track that I didn't know. I literally did it for free because that's how you should do it. That's what you do.
Right.
And I mean, not only was it a good experience for them, it's a good experience for me. So if I can't get better, then there's something wrong with me.
Yeah. Okay. So, and then his other question was, oh yeah, that's it. Okay.
What was you had a Ken Hill story?
Yeah, I got a Ken Hill story. Okay. So
shit.
2018, I fucked up, broke my back, and I was in a hurry, and I built a new motorcycle, and I was back racing,
soon.
Yeah. And, I go out there and I'm super frustrated because I'm not where I'm at. And you were there and you watched me and you didn't even have to say anything to me. You're like, you're kind of right. You're turning in like a pussy right here. You're like, I'm watching you every lap and you're tipping in, you're turning in way too early. Your bike's trying to knock you off because you're running over that bullshit on the inside. He's like, you need to hang it out there a little bit more and wait and be more patient at the tip in right there. And then, I was like, man, you know what? You're a dick, but okay. And then I went out there and I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah. Didn't you drop like a second
and a half? Yeah. Like a second and a half. Yeah. I was like right close to my personal pre-broken back time, but like I wasn't quite there, but I was like right on it. And, it just took that little punch in the balls to be like, oh yeah.
Well, I think that was my Dustin communication voice. That wasn't my new rider communication voice.
I'm not a new rider, so
yeah. That would have been, hey, leave your eyes on the turning point a little bit longer.
Yeah.
And that'll work. Instead, it's like, you dumbass, what are you doing?
Stop being such a pussy. Be a little bit more patient at the tip in. You're turning in early like a scared little wuss, And I totally was, and so like you said, man, like we're friends. But like in that moment, you were like, "Look, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it."
You know what? Yeah. So
you're like, "Here's how Hayden Gillim does it. Do it like that."
So
You showed me a video on your iPad, dude. You're like, this
oh,
is
did
Hank
I?
Gill. Yeah.
Dude,
You had
oh,
your iPad in your hand. You're like, look, do it like this. You
yeah.
swiped a couple
Well,
of times and you press play. You're like, here. I'm like,
there
oh
you go.
yeah.
Well, the thing is, we're all so invested in the sport, right?
Yeah.
You buy a bike and the time, and your freaking girlfriend or wife is pissed off at you that you're, all this stuff, right? But you go there, and again, I said this last time, I've done this decades, and there's no one that I've worked with that doesn't want to go faster. Everybody wants to go faster.
Yeah.
So you do this, but yet you don't do any training, right? You're hoping for a lap time, and it's insane. So getting a professional, objective opinion, evaluation, and methodology we do it everywhere, but we don't do it in a sport that'll kill you. It's weird.
So you're still doing that stuff where people send you video and you break it down and help them that way too, right?
I do, yeah. We'll talk about it next time. There's going to be some big changes in the whole Ken Hill program for next year.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yep. Yeah. I'm going to be scaling back a lot of things.
Shut up.
I am.
You've been only riding like traveling 300 days a year or something?
It's horrible. But I need to get better. And I mean, I've got to a point of where I'm a little bit of a plateau, and the next steps for me to get better are more writing. I'm going to be doing a little bit more very short, like the podcasts. The podcasts are so good. I just don't have any freaking time to do them, and my list just keeps getting longer. So I want to spend more time making the podcast more available. I've got again the whole cerebral thing, and then we're going to be looking at some very specialized vision schools, which I'm not going to get into yet. I'll show you some cool stuff on that later. We made a huge breakthrough in vision this summer, massive breakthrough in vision.
I'd like to maybe be a guinea pig for that.
Great. You're welcome.
Are you down?
You can be at the first school. Great.
Yeah, I'm in, dude. Like,
yeah, imagine school where you don't even have to bring a bike, and you can get all this done. Think about it. You wait. Yeah, it's gonna be
okay.
There's nothing like it. So anyway,
let me insert excuses of why it's. Just kidding. That's not how I roll ever.
Yeah,
That's
so to answer your question, yeah, I mean, I still do some videos. Actually, the videos. The problem is the standards of the videos that I do are very high, so I get paid very, very little to do them, but my standards are high, and so I spend way too much time doing them. And there's times I'll have a dozen to do in a week, and I can't do more than 3 or 4 a day because I have to watch them and write notes and do all this stuff. And anyway, for a little 10 or 20-minute video. But I have other people that can do it. Some of my other instructors are doing them now too. So yeah, people want to send. Now, actually, I got Phil Horowitz.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. Phil's like, oh my God, Phil is like so great. He's like Mr. Analytical, and here's a guy that obviously, he's ridden with Rossi at the ranch, right? I mean, he's been there, so he gets the sport. He gets it very well. So anyway, there's tons of ways to do that.
That's awesome, man. Well, you know what, Ken, we're like hour and 20 into this thing.
Holy crap! Good. No more questions. That's good. That's easy.
Yeah. The 10 fans. Richard said I think we're up to 10 now. So, but yeah, thanks for watching this thing, and I guess we'll do another one later on this year. We have Pittsburgh up next.
Pittsburgh's going to be good. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on with Pittsburgh.
Are you guys testing at COTA on Monday, Tuesday?
No, I didn't know there was a test on Monday, Tuesday.
Oh, yeah.
To be honest,
Richard, I think pitched in on the Indian thing, and I guess it's like $10,000 a person.
Oh, it's brutal. We actually, so I've already tested at COTA this year.
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
So we've already been to COTA, and we've already tested earlier this year. So we're ready to get after it. We like COTA. We were fast at COTA. We're super happy to be there.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got Pittsburgh, and there's the endurance race the week before. So that's going to be a whole bunch of drama going along with that.
So you guys putting a fancy cylinder head on for Pittsburgh?
No, we're not.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it, right? You didn't think the juice was worth the squeeze.
I've got data that with riders that do and don't have it, and For us, it's not. It's the data doesn't support it
Okay.
right now. Right now,
Right
doesn't
now.
support
Okay.
it. So
How about the guy on the other side of your pit? Do you think he used?
they have one.
Oh, they got us on it. Okay.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
His bike was speedy. Yeah, his bike was speedy for sure. But they also lost a motor. So I mean, now there's a whole bunch of things. What happened with the motor? But I mean, I think again we're back to getting squeezed harder, fuel. So
Yeah.
we'll leave it at
Well,
that.
yeah,
So,
the MGP, that's the name of the fuel, right? The
yeah.
MGP.
Yep.
Yeah. The more you squeeze them, the more that could get you.
There you go.
How much is a DNF worth? You know.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, right on,
Anyway,
Ken. Good
all right.
chatting you up,
Thanks,
buddy.
Justin.
Yeah,
All
man.
right.